All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining me on this special time here on Monday evening. Hopefully, everybody had a great weekend. So I was traveling today, so um, we're traveling for most of the day. So I want to make sure I had enough time to get home. So we had our office hours a little bit later. So this benefits people that are, maybe in Australia or on the West Coast that maybe aren't able to make the normal time office hours. So happy to have it a little bit later every now and then to benefit those folks. So if you're new, you haven't been on here before, first time, you can ask your questions on the right hand side here, and then I will answer them for you. So go ahead and start getting your questions on there. We don't have any questions on there yet. Those are from, I'm not sure where those are from. Those aren't from recently. So go ahead and get your questions on there, and we'll go ahead and get them answered. Um, I'll be on here till 10 p.m. Eastern time. So not sure where you're at, but it'll be an hour that I'll be on here answering questions, and I'll be on here whether people are asking questions or not. So if I don't have any questions to answer, then um, you'll just get to watch me answer emails and stuff like that. So go ahead and get your questions posted on there, and we'll get them answered. We'll get moving here. Yeah, those questions that are on there right now, those are actually from the previous. Those are still there from Friday. So maybe I'm not seeing the. Let me refresh my page here. Maybe I'm not seeing all the questions that are recent. Uh, Maybe there are questions there, and I'm just seeing an old. That is what's going on. Okay, so sorry about that. I was seeing um, the old. It wasn't live the questions thing for some reason. It was showing me must have timed out or whatever. So I'll go ahead and start answering some of these questions here. So I'll go ahead and start with David W. Says, put my 43-inch three-wood shaft in my Ping 400 Max driver. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, you can do that. You may lose a little bit of club head speed, but you might gain a little bit of control. I'm all about trying to, find that happy medium, right? So find the happy medium between the length of driver that works best for you, offer you the most control, and the length of driver that gives you the most speed. The shorter the club is, the slower you're going to be able to swing it essentially. So typically, a drivers, I think most of the ones you buy in the store are going to be around 45-ish inches, somewhere in there. The stock ones. So yeah, if you're taking your 3-wood down 2 more inches, you're probably losing. Compared to those, typically you're going to be losing a few miles per hour, which is going to cost you some yardage. You're talking 10, 15 yards. But if you're gaining that and just hitting it more solid in general, then that's completely fine. That's up to you. And some people swing shorter clubs faster. Obviously, there is a point to where the driver gets too long and you don't swing it faster, right? So you always want to swing take the amount of club that you can handle, and the most amount of control that you're going to have. That's why I say you always want to go get fitted. The only way to truly know what length of driver and what weight and what head weight and all that stuff, the only way to really know is to go get fitted by a reputable fitter, hit a bunch of different ones, see what kind of numbers you get. Try to get on a TrackMan or some sort of launch monitor that's going to give you some good accurate numbers, and just feel what works the best for you and gives you the best results. So hopefully that's what you found, David, and hopefully it leads to better golf for you. So he went on to say, hitting much better and just as long. What's your thoughts on a short shaft on driver? So yeah, it's just exactly what I mentioned. That's just basically, it sounds like you're probably not swinging it faster. It's possible that you could be, but if you're a lower swing speed player, I suppose you could be. It's probably more you're just hitting it more solid. You're could be you're a little bit more confident in it. I know I've seen a lot of people who get that bigger driver, that longer driver in their hands, and then they lose some confidence with it because it just feels like they're not going to be able to hit very good. So they try to guide it, and then they get that shorter club in their hand, and they swing more aggressively, and they actually swing it faster, even though if they swung with that same aggressiveness with the longer driver, they'd probably swing it much faster and be more successful with it. So like I said, it's all about finding the happy medium that works best for you. There's some guys on tour that use shorter drivers and some that use longer drivers, and it's just a matter of what works best for your game for sure. So Daniel R says, I need help with swing thoughts. First of all, you went plural. So that's going to be your first issue. Probably too many swing thoughts. And then he says, I hit great shots at the range before a round, but things seem to change once I'm on a tee. A common mistake I think I make is I want to really swing hard to keep up with my buddies. And of course, it results in an error shot. Any mental advice you can give for the game? Thanks. Well, first of all, you're pretty much always playing against the course for the most part, especially if it's stroke play. You're playing against your course. You can't play your buddy's game if your buddies are a little bit longer than you. It's the golf course isn't the place to try to gain on them. You got to go practice, work on your swing speed, go through the 20-minute distance fix, work on that, get that club head speed up there. It's not something you just want to go out to the course and try to start, over swinging and things like that. You got to find that happy medium, that play speed that works best for you. So that's the first thing. And also you want to understand that you're always going to hit the ball better when you're at the range, just by nature, because there's so much less distractions. There's not, you're not out there on the range trying to outswing your buddies. Typically, you're out there, you're doing your own thing. You're just trying to hit good golf shots. A lot of times when you're on the range, you're able to get in a groove as well. You're hitting the same shot over and over. I see people on the range, they hit the same exact shot with the same exact club at the same exact target over and over and over. Well, if you do that, it's easy to sit there and get in a groove and feel like you're hitting the ball really, really well. But the reality is that is not what happens on the golf course. On the golf course, you're switching clubs every single time. You're hitting different types of shots. Some people are, trying to hit draws and fades in high and low shots. You're hitting pitch shots. There's time in between shots. There's, there could be you hitting at different lies. The ball's above your feet. It's below your feet. You're into the wind. There's all kinds of different variables going on. So just by nature, because of how the range is set up compared to what it is on the course, you're going to have different results. So you can never really expect to hit the ball as well out on the course as you do on the range. Now, with that being said, there are things you can do on the range to help you make it more similar to the course. And it's all the things I just mentioned. It's essentially changing what you do every single time. Change clubs, hit different shots, hit draws, hit fades. One thing that I'm doing right now that's really, really helping me a lot is I'm doing what's called a shot matrix. And that's basically, I'm just trying to hit all the different 9 shot shapes. So if you're not familiar with what that is, I can draw that up here. All right. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just going out to the range and I set up a little tic-tac-toe board. So I have my tic-tac-toe board. So hopefully y'all can see this. And I go out there and my tic-tac-toe board, let me tell you what this represents. So this is going to be a draw shot. So draw. And we'll call this straight. And I'll abbreviate that. And then I'll call this fade. And then I'll call this high. Medium, we'll call it medium. And then these are low shots. So this is shot curvature. So I'm talking about, am I hitting a draw? Am I hitting it straight? Or am I hitting a fade? This is shot trajectory, high, medium, low. So basically I'm going out there. I'll start with the first one. I'll just start with the straight, medium trajectory shots. And I will try to hit a perfect straight, medium trajectory shots. And I'll hit it over and over and over again until I meet. Ideally, I'll get it on the first try, but I'll go out there and I'll try to hit it, get that medium. Now, within reason, if it draws a yard or two or something like that, or if it's maybe just a hair higher, a hair lower, you can be as stringent as you want to be. I just try to be consistent with it throughout the session. But let's say it takes me, 4 shots to get that perfect shot. It has to be perfectly solid, center of the face, ball first contact. I got to pick a target out there that I'm trying to get it close to. just as long as it's, within 10 yards of the target. You're going at a 20-yard wide green, that's going to be acceptable. If you get, if you're not quite at a, if you're at a lower ability level, you may want to just do draws and fades and straight shots, or just, you may not want to do a whole tic-tac-toe board, but it's all kind of based on your ability level. But if you're a really high ability level, like scratch golfer level plus handicap, you may want to have a 5-yard wide green or something like that. So basically, I'll go around and I'll count all the shots that it takes me to get. So the low fade, that's the toughest one, right? That's typically the toughest one to get. So I just go around and I count how many shots. And then I actually kind of think about, on the ones that I struggled, what was going on at impact. And usually for me right now, it's kind of heel strikes and thin strikes are the things that I struggle with when I'm doing this. So I'll actually use the rest of the session, or not the rest of the session, but the next portion of the range session to kind of focus on just focusing on getting rid of those thin and heel shots. So I'd be trying to hit the ball more on the toe and higher on the face. I'm exaggerating the opposite to get the desired result that I want. I'm just trying to hit those laser low shots. Or if you know kind of what your tendency is, and this is what I've been doing as well, and it's actually been leading to better results on this, I kind of know that I'm struggling with the thin and the heel strikes. So I'll start out my range session doing that. I'll get warmed up, and I'll start out just trying to hit higher on the face and more toward the toe, trying to get it really a lot more solid. And then I'll go into this, and I've actually found that I've done better with this after I've worked on that. And then after I go through that, I'll play 9 holes on the range. Or if I have a lot of time, I'll play 18 holes. And what that means is I just go through the course on the range as if I'm playing the course. So basically, the first hole at the club that we play at, it's driver. Ideally, it'd probably be more of a straight drive, maybe a draw. You can try and play a draw a little bit there if you want to. So what I do is I would imagine that first hole in front of me, and I would hit my first shot, and maybe I hit it to the right a little bit, and I'm kind of in the rough. I'm behind a tree. I got to think, okay, I got to hit this one really, really low. I got a 150-yard shot. I got to try and hit a really low shot that doesn't get above 10 yards off the ground, because I got to keep it under the trees, and I got to hit it 150 yards. Well, then I would play that kind of shot. And you basically just go through and play the course on the driving range. And then once you get on the best part is when you play this game, you make all the putts. So you shoot really, really low scores, hopefully. But if you get it on the green in a couple shots, you're always making birdie, right? So you just play through it on the course, and that will help you translate things onto the golf course. If you sit there and you just try to hit, an 8-iron straight for 20 shots in a row, you might feel really great after you got, maybe you got 10 great solid shots in a row, but that's not really going to help you translate things to the golf course, because that's not what happens on the golf course. You don't have a dead straight shot every single time that's an 8-iron out. You got to play different shots. And that's what I would recommend to help you translate things. So it's kind of a long answer to a shortish question, but I hope that helped. So let's go ahead and go to the next question. I'm going to get a drink real quick. All right, so Robert S. says, I slide my hips too far forward in the downswing, but if I widen my stance a little, it seems to help. Can you give me basic guidelines for stance width? So stance width is all personal preference. There are guidelines, or not guidelines, but pros and cons to each one. So if we angle this down a little bit. All right. So if you have more of a wide stance, it's like what he was talking about. It can help you. It can give you more stability in the golf swing. So if you look at Brooks Koepka, Rory McIlroy, Adam Scott, these guys, they all kind of, Tiger Woods at varying points in his career had a wideish stance. So it's to give you a little bit more stability. You're going to be a little bit more stable with a wider stance. What it can do as a con is it can restrict your hip movement a little bit. If your hips are really, really wide, it's a little bit harder to open up the hips. So if you have wrist or hip mobility issues, you're not able to get that full turn that you want to. Maybe a super wide stance isn't for you. Now, if you're more narrow, right, now you have less stability but you are much more mobile with the hips. You can really turn the hips back and forth. So it's kind of the pros and cons of both. I like something in the middle. For me, I'm about shoulder width apart. I'm basically right in this area right here. Maybe you were pretty narrow to begin with, and that's going to promote some sliding, and getting a little bit wider gave you a little bit more stability. So absolutely, but it's to each their own. I would go out there. If you really want to find the proper width stance that works the best for you, what I'd recommend doing is I would literally go out and go to the extremes. I would go out and try to hit some shots where you're extreme, like sumo stance right here, and try to hit some shots and try to hit the best shot you can from this kind of stance. Now I progressively move a little bit narrower. So I'd probably go a little bit 3 inches narrower, hit a few more shots, a few inches narrower, hit a few more shots, until you're basically with your feet together and you hit some shots and figure out what feels the most comfortable for you and what gives you the best results. But really, it's personal preference on that. You're going to see all kinds. You're going to look on tour and you're going to see guys with all kinds of different width stances. I mentioned guys that have wide stances, Tony Finau, Daniel Berger. Those are some guys that have some, very, very narrow stances. So it's really just personal preference. You just got to find what works best for you. All right. So David W. says, what are your thoughts on putting 3-wood 40? David W., I answered that right in the beginning. So I'm not going to answer it again. I'm going to archive the office hours. So if you missed the answer to your question, after the office hours are over, I try to do my best to get the archived office hours in there. So to get the archived office hours, you go to the office hours tab on the website and go to office hours highlights. And if you scroll down that page, you'll see the archive where you can see that. So after this is over, we get over at about 10 p.m. Eastern. Usually within a half hour of when it gets over, unless I have to go somewhere, which tonight I don't have to go anywhere. I'm probably going to be going to bed shortly after these are over today. I've been traveling all day, so I'm kind of tired. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to set it up. So it should be really shortly after we get done today. We'll get that archived ones on there. So Mike N says, I just saw a video where the guy said chunks and skulls have to do with posture. I've never heard that. What do you think? So it can have to do with posture. So if you're really bent over in the back, at a dress, you're really kind of bent over the ball. What's usually going to happen is you're going to kind of go up to the top if you're too close to it, and then you're going to kind of stand up in the downswing. So when you stand up, that causes you to flip the club, and that can cause the skulls. It can be a cause, but it's not going to be the cause. Ideally, what you want to do is kind of stand a little bit taller at a dress, and then as you go up to the top, and then go down to the ball, and that's going to allow you to be able to go down to the ball and get some forward shaft lean. So it's not necessarily always going to cause that, but posture can make a difference in how in skulls, in your contact and things like that. So not sure what video you're referring to, but typically staying a little bit taller is going to help you to get a little bit lower in the downswing. Whereas if you stand more lower in the downswing, in the backswing, in the downswing, you'll tend to stand up, and that can cause those poor strikes. So Mike M says, how do I swing hard without my arms taking over the swing? So you got to use your lower body. You got to use your lower body to start the downswing. A lot of it is weight shift, getting the correct weight shift at the right time. A lot of people shift their weight way too late, and by that time, it's just you're going to have the arms are just already started, and they're just going to swing in front of your body. So you got to get to your lead side sooner, get pressure going into the ground with your lead leg. That's going to allow you to rotate the body open and basically lead with the lower body. The best drill for that is going to be it's called the step drill. The best drill for that is the step drill. And just to go over that real quick, and I'll send you on the website to a video where you can find this drill. But basically what you're doing in this step drill is you're starting out with your feet together just like this. And you are starting, as soon as you're starting this backswing, you're starting to step forward. And I can't demonstrate this whole thing in here because this is a glass board behind me and I don't want to hit it. But basically, as you're stepping forward, you're going to hit the ground, and that's going to help you to initiate. That's going to get your momentum moving forward. That's going to help you initiate the downswing with the lower body and be able to swing all the way through. So you're going to be able to feel like you're using the lower body to pull everything through. So great place to find that step drill. There's a couple of really good places. One is in the 20-minute distance fix. If you haven't checked out our new 20-minute distance fix course, you need to go there right now. I don't care if you're not looking for distance. If you're one of those guys that's really just looking for consistency, distance is going to make you more consistent. And just a quick way of explaining that is if you're hitting your driver 20 yards further and you're hitting a pitching wedge instead of your 7-iron or your 8-iron or even your 6-iron, depending on the difference between your clubs, if you're hitting 2 or 3 clubs less into the green, you're going to be more consistent. You're going to hit the green more often with your pitching wedge than you are with an 8-iron or a 7-iron or something like that. So that's going to make you more consistent. So keep in mind that more distance makes you more consistent. To get to that 20-minute distance fix course, go to the instruction tab, let it expand down. It's the first one on there, 20-minute distance fix course. Start going through that, but there's a drill in there called the sumo step. That's going to be where Clay demonstrates that step drill. It's also in the quick start video in there. So I highly recommend going there and starting working through theirs and starting to get you some more distance so you can start playing some better golf. So David H says, question about straight line release. Is it a power move with my wrist to initiate the release? I think it is a whip crack, correct? Yeah, so it's but it's not all in the wrists. It's not just that. It's got to be everything kind of coming in. So you think about when you are really trying to give maximum effort. Let's say you're trying to crack a whip, right? When you're trying to crack a whip as hard as you can, you're not just going like that, right? You are really stepping into it, using the ground, rotating the body open. I mean, watch anybody, watch Indiana Jones. He's not just going like that. He's really whipping that in there. You watch, if you got a chance to watch Wimbledon this weekend, that was an incredible match between who was it? I forget his name now, Djokovic and Federer. If you had a chance to watch that, I mean, those guys, they're not just over there swinging the racket like this with just the wrist. Like they're coming in and they're coming off the ground. If you watch, they're actually jumping off of the ground because they're using their legs to really build momentum and hit that ball as hard as they can. They're trying to get that top spin and a lot of power on it at the same time. So if you watch those guys hit, it's the same kind of motion. Any powerful motion is going to come from the ground up. You're using the forces. This is your connection to the ground is with your legs. You have to use your legs to build up that momentum, to build up that power. Now, I will say a lot of your power does come from your arms. That is absolutely true. If you sit here and you don't turn anything, you can get some power. You can probably get 80%, 75 to 85% of your power just from swinging your arms and nothing else. But to be able to get the maximum amount of power to really get that club to release out in front, you have to use the momentum generated by your legs. And also to get this club to release, if you just swing your arms, you can't release this club out here unless you really chicken wing. And that's going to be taking a lot of power out of your swing. You basically have to release it right here as you're coming through. In order to get that club to release out in front, you've got to open up the body. If you think about a baseball player, right? They're coming in and they're like this as they're coming through the ball. They're really using their body and rotating those, really flying those hips open. And when they hit the ball, they're like this when they're hitting it solid, right? When they're launching those balls, they're not coming in and hitting it like that. They're coming in like that. So to get the maximum amount of power and get that club to release out in front, you got to use the lower body. Go to that step drill that I talked about. Work your way through that 20-minute distance fix. Get yourself some power. Get that club releasing at the right time as you move through that course. I think it will help you out with your game a lot. All right, let me get a drink here real quick. All right, I'm going to do my best to answer everybody's questions on here. There might be quite a few more people on here since we're at a special time this time. So apologize if I don't get to everybody's questions, but I will do my best. All right, so John C says, does weight go directly into the right heel on backswing, or do you push or right heel or instep or on downswing? So that's a little bit confusing. Does the weight go directly to the right heel on the backswing, and do you push or right heel? Make sure that you you kind of have a complete answer or question here, because it's a little bit hard for me. It's a little bit confusing when it's all jumbled up, kind of like that. I think what he's asking is does the weight go directly to your right heel, assuming that you're right-handed in the backswing? So initially, it's kind of going to the inside of your foot, and that's going to be moving toward the heel. So it's going to be going to the inside of your foot here, the arch of your foot. And then as you're getting up to the top, it's starting to move toward the heel in the downswing. And yes, there is going to be, as you're getting to the top of the swing, and that's what you're going to learn in that step drill, is that as you're getting up to about right here, you're starting to get momentum shifting to this side. So you're pushing into the ground. There's a momentum shift that's happening. And then the same thing's happening here. That pressure is going to the arch of your foot, toward the balls of your feet. And then as you are coming down and rotating into impact, it's moving more toward the heel as you're coming through and into impact here. So if you're balanced throughout the swing and you're shifting your weight at the right times, it's not really that important where it's going. It's going to happen naturally as an effect of being balanced. But if you are kind of getting out on your toes, that means that you're kind of standing up in the swing. So you got to make sure that you're staying in your posture here. And that usually comes from when you're getting out on your toes, that usually comes from coming down too steep in the downswing. That's going to be the move course, wanting to work through that. So just to reiterate, I think what he's asking there is, does it go straight to the right heel in the backswing? No, it goes to the inside of the foot first. And then as you're working your way kind of to the top here, it's going towards your heel. And then there is a push off that's happening to get the momentum moving to your lead side. And then that pressure shifts to the balls of your feet, the arch of your foot here. And then as you are rotating and pushing open here, that's moving to your heel as you're coming up into impact and all the way into the full finish there. All right, so let's go to the next one. All right. So Gerald L says, Gerard L says, Q, I play in a couple of courses which are hilly and quite difficult. So my question is, on an uphill lie, how should I position the ball and how should I play it? The same for downhill lie. Do I position the ball and how should I play it? As well as on a lie, ball above my feet, how do I position the ball, and so on and so forth. So he's talking basically all the lies where you can use. So first of all, place to find these videos on these exact things that you're asking about is if you go to the vault and you go to special shots, there's a video for every single one that you asked about. I'll go over them here, but I wanted to let you know, I'll go over them in general, but you can get more detail if you go to those special shots. To get to the vault, you click on the instruction tab or actually hover your mouse over it. And then that will expand a menu. Click on the vault categories, then go to special shots in the vault categories, and you'll see those amongst a bunch of other ones as well that you may be having questions about. So let's go over it real quick. So uphill lie, what changes do I need to make? So first of all, uphill lie, you need to club up. You're going to lose distance because it's adding a lot of loft. So basically it's taking, if you normally hit an 8-iron in this position, the hill, depending on the severity of it, if it's a very severe hill, and this may be just something you got to practice to understand how much it takes off. But if you have a very severe hill, it may take off a lot of loft. So it may be a 2 clubs or something like that. But essentially, you need to club up a little bit because it's going to add loft to the face because you're hitting up. The next thing I would do is I try to match my shoulders to the slope. So I wouldn't have your feet kind of like this and then have your shoulders level, because that's going to help you. That's going to make you kind of hit down into the turf too much. You're going to chop into it. What you want to do is kind of match your shoulders. So if you're I'm trying to demonstrate this, but if you're, the foot's above or the ball is, you're hitting uphill, you want to kind of match your shoulders a little bit to that so that you can kind of hit with the slope. And that's the other thing. And then lastly, you can put the ball a little bit further back in your stance, or actually a little bit forward in your stance, whatever's going to help you to get it, to help you get the ball, the club on the ball. Usually when it's uphill, you put it a little bit up in your stance to help you, or you kind of leave it in the same spot. But whatever you feel like it's going to help you to get that club on the ball a little bit better. So in general, that's what you want to do. Club up, match your shoulders to it, and maybe move the ball a little bit further up in your stance, but in the same place in your stance is good too. Now, downhill is kind of the opposite, right? So a lot of times you can club club down on this as well, because you want to choke up to give yourself a little bit more control, and then move the ball a little bit further back in your stance and match your shoulders to it. So if you're kind of hitting downhill here, so let's say this club is kind of the slope, so I kind of want to match my shoulders to it. I'm going to be like this essentially, and move the ball back in your stance a little bit, use a little extra club and choke up so that you can gain a little bit more control, and then move that ball back in your stance so that you can get that ball first contact. Now, ball above your feet, that's going to be choking up again, because you're going to be kind of hitting it. So if we're thinking extreme sense, you're going to be choking up again, and play that ball to go a little bit left. Typically, the ball will shoot a little bit more left, because what happens is this lie angle. So if this is a level lie, now if I have a lie that's way above my feet and I have this club more like that, look where the club face is pointed. So a lot of times that club face or that ball will start a lot more to the left if you're right-handed, if the ball is way above your feet. So clubbing up, choke up on the club, and play that ball to come out more to the left when you hit it. Opposite is true for hitting the ball below your feet. You can club up a little bit and choke up to give yourself a little bit more control, or you can use a normal length. But a lot of times this will start out a little bit right, because the ball will be a little bit more upright with the club. And you see how the club, this is straight, a little bit more upright. You can see how it's shooting to the right a little bit. So to find more detailed videos on how to go through those, I'd recommend going to that special shots vault section. But in order to answer as many questions as I can, I'm going to basically just give you a little bit summary there. So Keith B says, I'm working on the stable fluid spine work, having trouble achieving enough forward shaft lean at impact, even though my tilt at setup and at impact is pretty good. Hip turn is pretty good too. But when I video myself, I'm getting very low shaft lean at impact. Could consciously keeping my right arm bent longer in downswing be helpful? Other ideas? So keep in mind that all these positions that you're talking about, spine tilt, hips opening up, things like that, these are all things that can help you to get forward shaft lean. But they're not things that necessarily make you or force you to get forward shaft lean. The only thing that can force you to get forward shaft lean is getting these hands more forward at impact. So usually what happens, people are struggling to get forward shaft lean. It's usually one of three things. Number one is casting in the swing. So I make sure that you are generating lag in the downswing. So what that means is at the top of the swing, you are generating this angle right here. And then that angle, you'd like it to see it to get smaller in the downswing. If that angle is getting bigger from the top, you're casting, it's very, very difficult to get forward shaft lean when you're casting the club from the top of the swing. So you're going to want to work through the top speed lag section if that is the case. Let me get a drink real quick. Number two is going to be shallowing out the club and basically squaring up the face early in the swing. So what that means is, if you're not familiar with what the move is, this is what the move section is all about, is if you look on the downswing, if you look from down the line, if you look at this club, is this club pointing at the golf ball or slightly outside the golf ball? Ideally, slightly outside the golf ball is where you'd want to be pointed. That means that you're shallowing out the club, so you're in good position there. But if it's vertical, if it's anywhere inside of the golf ball, that means that you're coming down steep. And what happens is, since we're good athletes and we want to get this club to come back down on plane so that we can hit a good straight shot, what we'll do is we'll stand up. And when you stand up, your hands move further away from the golf ball. It doesn't matter how good your spine angles are. You're going to move away from your hands are going to move away from the golf ball. They're going to be high, and you're going to flip the club. So you may want to work on shallowing out the club. The tennis racket drill in the move course is a very good one. It could also be how you square up the face. So if you're used to squaring up the face by flipping the club, if you look at your swing and at impact, which most likely it is, if you look at impact and your trail wrist is pretty much like this, it's dead straight like that. That means that you're used to squaring the face by kind of flipping the club through there. So that would be this motion right here. So what you need to do is you need to square up the face by turning the handle down, and that's how you get a square club face with forward shaftling. If you look at that position, that's the right wrist. You can see how it's bent back in this position right here. A lot of people struggle with this because that feels like a very weak position. That feels like a very powerful position as you're coming through there. But once you start hitting some really compressed golf shots, that will change in your head to feeling more like a powerful position. So again, that's going to be working through the move course and getting more comfortable with that. So basically, to make it a little bit more simpler, the idea of forward shaftling. If I were to take my wrist angles and keep them all the same and just push the shaft forward, well, what happens is that face is wide open. So what I have to do is I have to turn that handle down to square it up. And now you can see I have a square club face with forward shaftling. If you look at that at impact, that's like that. So this is without forward shaftling, square club face. And then this is open club face, forward shaftling. And then this is square club face, forward shaftling. So you got to turn that handle down. So that's really the third piece that's going to help you to square that face up. So that's going to be the move course, working through the move course. Those are the big ones to help you get forward shaftling. So to get to the courses, click on the house icon, scroll down. You can see all the course progress there. If it's casting you're struggling with, go to the top speed lag. If it's shallowing out the club and or not squaring up the face early, you're going to want to go to that move section and start working through the drills there. There's also tons of videos in the vault that supplement that. If you just look up shallowing the face, or sorry, shallowing, just search the word shallowing. There's a search engine on the website, works really well. Use the words shallowing and you'll find tons of videos to help you with that. All right. So Tom C., what are your thoughts do you have to stop swinging fast from the top of the swing? So that's proper sequencing. That's going to be working on the step drill. Go to the 20-minute distance fix. I've already kind of gone over this question. It was basically I had the same exact question from earlier. If you want to see my full answer on it, watch the archived office hours. But just to tell you the drill I would have you go to and the drill to work on is the step drill. If you go to the 20-minute distance course, work through the drills. I believe it's 1.5 sumo step drill. Don't skip to that. You know, if you're doing the 20-minute distance fix, go through and do all of it. You know, don't just skip to that and do that drill. Go through and start going through all that quick start. It's also in there, but you work on it to a much larger extent in that 1.5 drill. So Daniel R says, perfect, thanks. Good, glad I could help. Tim O says, hi, Q. Hey, what's going on, man? Glenn R says, it's dropping inside meant to 90-degree perpendicular with the turn instead of circular. I'm not sure exactly what you mean, dropping inside. So if you're talking about dropping inside, it's shallowing out the club. What you mean by dropping inside is basically getting this club to work inside of the plane. That's basically what that means. It's not in relationship to how much you're turning or the rotation or anything like that. It's really just in reference to your swing plane. So to have a good idea of what your swing plane is going to be throughout the swing, and it's not an exact science, but if at address you are videoing from down the line, you want to make sure that you are videoing from down your toe line or basically down your hands. The easiest way to do that is just take a club and put it on the ground, point it at your target, and then set up to the golf ball, or set up your camera so it's shooting right down that club or alignment stick, and then set it to the golf ball where your hands are directly above that, where if you just drop something, it would just land right on top of that club. And then if you draw a line, which is called the elbow plane, from the hosel of the club up through the point of your elbow here, that's going to give you a good idea of what your swing plane is. It's not an exact science, but it's going to give you a pretty good idea of what's going on. So dropping that club from the inside would be getting that club to work from the inside of that plane, which is basically shallowing out the club, which is ideally what we want to do to be able to stay in our posture, get forward shuffling, get really good compression on the ball. So that's basically what that means. Has nothing to do with being perpendicular to your rotation or anything like that. It's only in reference to it being inside the plane. All right, so Tim O says, I've been hitting 54-degree wedge very nicely. All of a sudden, it's going to the right, hard right. What the heck am I doing? Thanks, Tim. So if it's going like hard right, you're probably hitting it off the hosel. Sounds like you're hitting the S word, hosel rocket, shanks, right? So I would maybe get some foot powder spray or something and spray it on your club face. See if that's what's going on those shots that you hit way to the right. It sounds like that's what's going on. So there's some things that you can do to help you fix the shank. So number one is try to intentionally hit it on the toe as much as you possibly can. So a lot of what golf is, the easiest way to fix anything in golf is to exaggerate the opposite. You got to change your feeling to get the desired result that you want. So if your feeling right now is you're hitting it dead in the center of the face, but the reality is that you're hitting it off the hosel here. And like I said, I don't know if this is for real what's happening. I'm just guessing based on what you said. It'd be hard for me to know unless I saw your swing, and we'll get into that here in a minute. But so the reality is that you're hitting here. So in order to adjust your feeling to get the desired result of what you want, you've got to intentionally try to strike the ball here, and that will move the strike closer to the center of the face. So that's what I'd recommend to do immediately. And if you still hit it off the hosel or way off the heel or something like that, just exaggerate it even more. You got to adjust your feeling even more. Get out of your comfort zone. Do this at the range. This isn't something you're going to do at the course right away. But ideally, you try to work this out on the range. And then if you actually strike out on the toe, then all you just ease off of that feeling to get it in the center of the face. And just because you get one in the center of the face, that doesn't mean, oh, you got it. Now you can go back to it, what you were doing before. Because if you do that, you're just going to go back to hitting it. You haven't changed your feeling yet. You have to keep on doing it until you actually start hitting it on the toe. And then at that, consistently, and then at that point, you can start you're calibrated essentially, and you can start trying to strike it off the center. So that's what I recommend doing right away. Some things that can cause you to make it more difficult to strike it in the center of the face or to make it easier to strike it on the hosel would be, number one, is swinging too much from the inside. So if you're swinging way from the inside, and we were just talking a minute ago about swinging too much from the inside. If this club's working way from the inside to out, basically what's happening is this hosel is moving right toward the golf ball. The center of the face is moving that way, and the hosel is moving right toward the golf ball. You're going to be more susceptible to heel strikes or shanks in that matter. So if that's the case, again, it's adjusting your feeling to get the desired result that you want. If you're actually doing this when you feel like you're coming down perfectly on plane, then you may want to feel like you're coming over the top to actually come down on plane. So try to feel like you're kind of coming across the ball, you're coming over the top a little bit more to get your path a little bit more neutralized. The other big thing I see that's causing shanks is the hips moving toward the golf ball in the downswing. And what that does is that takes away room for your hands to move through the ball. So just to kind of show you what I'm talking about here, there's something called the tush line. So when you look at your swing on camera, if you draw a line on your backside here, we call that the tush line. And what happens is that when we see people struggling with shanks, a lot of times we see your tush coming off of that tush line, and you're moving toward the golf ball. When that happens, you're taking away space for your hands to move through it, moves your hands closer to the golf ball, making the shanks more prominent. You're going to end up moving that hosel toward the golf ball. Also, hips coming off of that tush line usually drops that club underneath, moving into out. So it's kind of a big thing for hitting shanks. So try to feel like you're kind of moving toward your back heel as you're coming in. You're really pushing this hip back and out of the way as you're coming through, and kind of swinging over the top, hitting it off the toe to get rid of those shanks. So like I said, it's hard for me to know exactly what's going on, without seeing your swing. But just based on what you told me, it sounds like that's the case. If you'd like me to take a look at your swing, I do offer an unlimited swing review program where you can send in your swings to me, and I'll take a look, and I'll be able to pinpoint exactly what's going on and tell you what you need to do to fix it. So if you're interested, At the top of the page there, you can see it says click here for more information about swing reviews, or you can click get a review. It takes you to the same place at the top of the page there. And you can sign up for me. If I don't have spots available, go ahead and sign up for my waiting list. I can only work with a certain number of students. I wish I could work with as many students as I can, but I only have so much time in the day, right? So I can only work with a certain number of students. So sign up for that waiting list. I'll let you know as soon as I can when spots become available. Then you can sign up at that time. All right, so we got about 15 minutes left here. Go ahead and get your questions on here, and we'll get it. We got one question right now. If you've got a question, go ahead and post it in there, and we'll get it answered in the next 15 minutes here. So Jason R says, I got a brand new set of Mizuno clubs this year. I love Mizuno clubs. They look awesome. I've hit several of them. I really like the way that they feel. So hopefully you like those. He said, fitted at Pro Shop with Sim, but my instructor is telling me they're too short. He wants me to stand taller in my stance. How do I know who is right? My Golf Pro instructor, fitter, or my country club instructor. He thinks I should add 1 to 1.5 inches to club. Oh, wow. That's quite a bit, actually. How do I measure correctly? That's really a tough one right there. What I recommend doing is, your instructor is trying to get you to swing a certain way, but ultimately it's up to you. Usually, you're going to adjust your swing to your equipment. Swing fitting and club fitting and things like that. This might be an unpopular opinion, but it's somewhat overrated. You're going to adjust the equipment that you have. You're going to adjust your ball flight to make your ball flight do what it needs to do. It's like, I actually went and got fitted. Clay and I went to Ping, and I got fitted recently at Ping, and I basically got the same clubs with different heads. That's essentially what I got. I got pretty much all the same shafts. I got a driver shaft that's a little bit lighter, but it kicks basically the exact same as my old driver shaft. So it felt very, very similar to me. I actually got the same 12-year-old shafts that I had in my previous Titleist clubs because all the shafts that I tried at the fitting, I was just a little bit off with them. I just couldn't. I just had a little bit of slice on all of them. They weren't kicking quite the same as my other ones. And then we put the ones that I used to have in there, the exact same shafts I had before, and boom, I started hitting the ball dead on center and how I was wanting to again. So you're going to adjust. But if I were to kept playing those iron or the shafts that he had in there, I would have adapted to it eventually. It would have just taken some time. So you're always going to adapt to the what you have. I would always ask your instructor why. Like, why does he want you to stand taller? How is that? You always got to think everything you do with your technique, it has to be to improve what's going on at impact. So when I always tell people when you're getting lessons or you're getting fitted or things like that, if they're telling you they want you to do a certain thing, ask them why. If you still don't understand how that helps your impact, ask them why again. Keep asking them why until you get an answer. So why would an instructor want you to stand a little bit taller? I went over this a little bit in the beginning of the office hours, is if you're really bent over the ball a lot, and I don't know if this is what's happening with you, your instructor might be wanting you to stand up a little bit taller for different reasons. But if you're standing really low to the ground, so you're really bending over the ball, what's going to happen is in the downswing, if you're too close to the golf ball, you may tend to stand up and it can cause you to flip. I don't know if that's what's going on with your swing. That's typically a reason why you see people stand a little bit, want you to stand a little bit taller. 1.5 inches to add the club, that is a lot. That may not seem like much, but that is adding a lot. If you have, maybe you have shorter arms, maybe you're taller. I'm kind of average, slightly above average. I'm like 5'11", 6 foot, somewhere in there. I have longish arms, so I actually play standard length clubs. If I had this, basically normal length arms, I'd probably play longer clubs. But because my arms are very long, For my height, I actually have a pretty big wingspan. I play standard length clubs. Now, if you're taller, you could need longer clubs. I don't know how tall you are, but it's generally the way it goes. It's more about what feels the best for you. It's really hard for me to say without seeing what's going on. I'm not a club fitter either, but I just know based on my experience with club fitting and things like that. I've been fit for clubs several times and seeing the minimum amount of difference that it really makes. It's more about you adapt to what's going on. It's more about what you do with the clubs than what the clubs are doing for you. Most clubs are going to give you a very similar set of so you're 6'5". If you're playing standard length clubs and you're 6'5", you probably need an inch longer. I would imagine. I would guess. I don't know if you're playing standard, but I mean, if they're already a little bit longer to begin with, you're adding another inch and a half. I mean, that's a really long club, but you just got to find what works best for you. But like I said, it's hard for me to say exactly. That's a tough situation to be in for sure. All right, so Jason, I wish I could help a lot more with that, but best of luck to you. Like I said, in general, I typically listen to the instructor, but I am an instructor, so I might be a little bit biased there. But you gotta do ultimately what you feel is the best for you. But I would first go to your instructor and ask him why they want you to do. Give you more specifics on exact, because that's a whole thing. That's going to cost you some money. You already just dropped some money on these irons, and you're going to have to drop more money to get extensions in them. It has to be really worth it. So make sure that you get a really, really good explanation from your instructor before you go ahead with it. So that way you feel really good about it before you do it, if you do it. So Keith A says, I am wondering about the hammer drill or axe throwing club down on backswing. So recently there was a video. I'm not really sure what your question is, but recently there was a video on it's called a hammer drill, and basically the hammer drill, it's basically to help you get the feeling of kind of hitting. I think a lot of people have trouble with forward shaftling because they don't want to hit down into the golf ball. They're afraid of hitting the turf. So that's part of it. The other feeling is that they're trying to help the ball up in the air. So if you have the feeling that this is more like a hammer, you're not trying to help the ball up in the air, because naturally you're going to kind of get some better forward shaftling. So I highly recommend kind of going through that video. If you're someone who's kind of flipping, you're having trouble, getting that, taking divots and things like that, go to that most recent video. I don't know if it's the most recent one, but it's a very recent one anyway, in the last couple of weeks, where Clay's talking about hitting the club or hitting the ball like a hammer. That's a really good feeling to have as you're coming through there. Hammer, axe, it's kind of the same feeling coming through impact. All right. So Jim G says, how do you control distance, consistent contact when chipping near the green in 3-inch deep grass? So great question, Jim. The answer is, if you're in really deep turf, it's really going to take some practice with that. It's really kind of unpredictable. It's a higher degree of difficulty shot when you're in some deep rough like that. So you can't really expect to have a ton of control. Basically, what you want to do is you just want to get the ball out and give yourself a chance to make a putt for par or whatever it might be. Just try to give yourself a chance to get up and down, but you can't really expect to get it really close. If you're in really, really deep rough like that, what I recommend doing with those kind of shots, if it's really kind of buried down in there and you're going to have a hard time getting the club underneath the golf ball, what I'd recommend is kind of putting it back in your stance a little bit, and you're just going to have to kind of chop down into it. That's basically what you're going to have, and let the loft kind of blast the ball out a little bit. Now, obviously, if it's a really short shot, that's going to be really high difficulty. I'd really just make sure that you kind of pop it out. It may go past the hole a little bit, but at least you're out. Whereas if you try to baby it and you catch too much grass and you don't give it enough acceleration, it may still be in the grass after you make your swing, and then you're in the same position that you were in before. Now, if you can get something underneath, you can get that club underneath it, you can play it very, very similarly to a normal chip shot. You may just need to hit it harder to get through the grass a little bit and realize it's probably not going to have a lot of spin. So it's gonna come out hot, and it's not going to have a lot of spin on it. It's going to kind of roll out a little bit. So what I'd recommend doing is hopefully you have a practice facility where you can kind of go practice some of these shots where you have deeper rough, and give yourself different lies and see how they react. Hit that shot where it's kind of buried down in the grass, and you kind of have to pop it out of there. Hit that shot where it's not totally buried, but it's still not a very good lie. It's going to be hard to hard to control it, but try to get the loft underneath it and understand that it's probably going to come out with not a lot of spin on it. It's going to roll out a little bit more, and try to play that one where it's sitting on top of the grass like a tee, and try to make sure that you can control that leading edge. Try to make sure that you're getting it in the center of the face and that you're not hitting it super high on the face. So I recommend just going out and practicing those shots, and understand that those aren't going to be shots that you're going to be able to get up and down every single time, just by the nature of those lies. It's just hard to control the ball out of there. It's kind of unpredictable. So if you get it really close and you have a gimme, that's basically consider yourself lucky. If you get it within 10 feet, you're probably doing pretty good. But keep in mind, you're probably going to end up with some longish par putts, and those are just areas of the course where you're going to want to avoid. If there's parts of the green or parts of the off the green where it's super gnarly rough or something like that, you're going to want to steer away from those. If there's bunkers, I would be going more toward, that's why I think bunkers are a little bit overrated. I think because people are a little bit scared of them because they don't practice how to hit those shots. But bunker shots are actually much easier and much more predictable than that shot that you just mentioned with really deep rough. It's going to be much more predictable out of sand. As long as it's not a fried egg or something like that, as long as you have a good lie in the bunker, you practice that shot. It's actually a very, very easy shot. So it's really just about practice. Give yourself the different lies. Try to hit the different shots. But hopefully you can take what I gave you today and kind of try and hit those shots and get a lot better at them. All right. So David H. says, the most obvious flaw I have on video is a bent forward arm at impact. I feel it is either slow weight shift or poor release, which is more likely. And can you point me to a drill of lengthening that arm? So first of all, it's a total myth that the lead arm needs to be straight at impact. Go look at Jordan Spieth's golf swing. Go look at Brooks Koepka's golf swing. Go look at Lee Westwood's golf swing. Go look at Jamie Sadlowski, long drive champions golf swing. All have bent lead arms at impact. So don't feel like having a bent lead arm at impact means that that's a huge flaw. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a huge flaw. There's a difference between it being a flaw and when it's not. So the area where it is an issue is if you see that your body is not rotating. So, and this is what we call the chicken wing. So if you're coming into impact and you're seeing this action kind of like that, you're seeing that this wrist kind of break down. You're seeing this trail wrist kind of pushing through, no forward shaft lean. You're kind of brushing the turf, and the body is pretty squared up. You see that your hips are squared up to the golf ball. This is what we call the chicken wing. This is from the upper body out racing the lower body. This can cause issues with your impact because if you are flipping the club, you're adding loft. It's going to be hard to get a ball first contact. You're going to end up with a lot of chunks, a lot of thin shots, a lot of weak shots. So this is absolutely a flaw. But coming in, if you have the body is opening up, you have forward shaft lean, and you're getting good compression on the golf ball, everything's looking really good, and you're kind of in this position right here, that is completely fine. That's not hurting you at all. That's just how you're coming into impact and getting the club to be in the right place. The ball does not care if your arm is bent. It does not care whatsoever. It only cares how this club is being presented to it. So if you have this good impact position and you have your arm kind of like this, like a Brooks Koepka or Lee Westwood, that's completely fine. But if you're coming into impact and you're like this and you have the chicken wing action, you're going to want to work on getting your lower body involved so that you can create momentum and get this club releasing out in front. So that's going to be the best drill out there for working on getting to your lead side and getting that good weight shift and getting that good sequencing going is going to be that sumo step drill that's in the 20-minute distance fix. Or there's another Clay goes over it in another video that might be more beneficial for you if you are kind of seeing that on video. And I would only work on this if you're seeing that chicken wing type shot where you're seeing you're flipping through impact, the upper body's out racing the lower body. Only work on that if that is the case. But that's going to be how to start the downswing video. If you click in the upper right-hand corner, there is a search engine there. Search downswing. I believe it's going to be the third video down, how to start the downswing. It's going to have some yellow lettering in the thumbnail. Clay goes over the step drill in that video as well, and some other things about the downswing and sequencing and things like that I think we'll find helpful if you're in that area. So I'd be working on that for sure. But understand that a bent left arm is not necessarily a swing flaw. It can be at times. It just depends on what's going on. So Jason R says, I'll send you a video. Yeah, so go ahead and sign up for my swing reviews if you want, and you can send me over a video, and I'll be happy to take a look. So I'll go ahead and I'll answer as many questions as I can. And we'll see. It's about 10 p.m. right now, so we got a few more questions left here. But after Kedron P, I won't be taking any more questions, all right? So no more questions after Kedron P. We'll go ahead and get finished up here. So let's go to Bert B. Says, I retired at the age of 72. Good for you. Happy retirement. I'm a very good physical condition and decided to take up golfing. Having enlisted for the course now and started to look at your videos, I noticed that you start the course with handling of the golf driver. However, I have started with the irons and I don't know yet, haven't tried how to handle the drivers. Please advise on how to follow the course. So I will tell you that the Top-Speed Golf system is not meant for a total beginner. Top-Speed Golf system is basically for those who already have a kind of understanding of the basics already. So grip, stance, posture, where to play the ball in your stance, and things like that. We already assume that you understand how to do that stuff. This is more about the mechanics that are beyond that. So if you're looking for beginner type stuff, I'd be looking for stuff on the grip, stance, and go to our search engine and search for those things. Get grip, stance, posture, all those things. I'd be working through those. Get a good handle on those, and then start working through the system. The Top-Speed Golf system applies to irons and drivers. All shots that you're hitting full swing with a driver or full swing with any club. The only difference that you'll have with a driver versus an iron is with a driver, you're hitting more up on the golf ball because it's up on a tee. So that here's my golf ball is on a tee here. I'm hitting up on it. Now with a iron, it's on the ground and you're trying to hit more down on the golf ball. So you get that ball first contact. You can't hit up on the ball when it's on the ground, right? So that's basically the only difference. Everything else, as far as the Top-Speed Golf system, it's virtually the same. So you're going to work through the course, whether you want to use your irons or your driver or whatever it is. That's completely fine. If you're looking for distance, you're going to want to work through the 20-minute distance fix course. That's going through. You're going to be wanting to go through that with the driver and understand that if you're raising your club head speed with your driver, you're also going to be raising your club head speed with your other. It's going to happen, with that. So, but yeah, if you're a beginner, total beginner, work through the beginner type stuff, grip, stance, posture, setup, that sort of thing. Make sure you have a good handle on that. Just trying to make good contact with the ball in general. And then once you get that worked out, then start working through the system. So Paul C says, hi Q, I'm hitting some thin shots with my 56 Sandy. Should my weight be on the right foot at impact? So I assume that you're right-handed. You're going to have most of your weight on your lead foot at impact. So should be having about 75, 80% of your weight on your lead foot at impact. That should be where most of the pressure is. If you are having a lot of that on their trail foot, you may be hanging back, kind of hitting up, kind of coming in and hitting up on the ball a little bit. If the club is bottoming out and then going into the golf ball, that's going to cause some thin shots. So that may be what's going on. But again, it's hard for me to know exactly without seeing your swing. But based on what you said, that sounds like what's going on. If you'd like me to take a look at your swing, again, I offer a swing review program. You can shoot me over your swing. I can pinpoint exactly what's going on there. So David W. says, one of my swing thoughts hitting irons is see the ball leave. So David W. is asking, does that make sense? So sure, it makes sense to a certain extent. You're kind of chasing the ball through impact, but you want to go ahead and you just don't want to get in a situation where you see the ball leave and then you kind of stay here as you're coming up. You want to make sure that after that ball leaves, that you're starting to come all the way up into a full finish position. So you just want to make sure that you allow your head to come up after you hit the golf ball. If you keep that head down like that as you're coming through, it's going to be hard to get a lot of speed from that. So yeah, that makes sense, but just be careful not to try to keep your head down so much. Allow that head to come up after contact. All right, so last question here. I will finish with Keedron. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. Keedron P says, what's the best strategy for plugged bunker shots? So if you have a fried egg in the bunker, what you're going to want to do is you're actually going to want to, typically for a bunker shot, you're opening up the face. And what that does is that exposes the bounce so that it can glide through the turf. Well, we don't want to do that. If the ball is plugged, we don't want your normal bunker shot where it's sitting on top of the sand. We want that to happen so that the club can slide underneath the golf ball and we can pop it up out of the sand. But if the ball is kind of buried, we need that edge to dig a little bit so that it can get underneath the golf ball. And keep in mind that these shots are very difficult. It's going to be hard to get this shot close. If you get it on the green, you're doing really, really good. Okay. So if you got a plugged shot, just keep in mind that anywhere on the green, typically with this shot, it is very good. So basically the way you're going to play it is you're going to put that ball back in your stance a little bit. So if your normal bunker shot is face open, kind of in the middle of your stance, a little bit forward of your stance, and you are coming down and doing that action, you're really kind of using the bounce and kind of flipping through impact and just popping that ball up in the air. But if the ball is plugged, you can't do that. So you're going to want to square the face a little bit more, expose some of that leading edge, and you're going to want to move that ball back in your stance a little bit. And you're going to want to come down and get that leading edge behind the golf ball, into the sand behind the golf ball. So it's going to be more of a chopping as you're coming through, kind of like that, and allow that to explode out of the bunker. So I highly recommend practicing this shot. Go to hopefully your practice facility, or you can find a practice facility where you can practice this shot. And give it a shot the next time you go out. Get, just have the face kind of squared up, only slightly open, so that exposes, you use less bounce. Get that ball or get that club behind the golf ball, explode it out. And keep in mind, again, this is not a shot that you're going to have a lot of control with. If you get it on the green, you're going to be doing really good. So hopefully that helps everybody. Thanks everybody for joining me tonight at this special time. We'll be back here again tomorrow, 9 a.m., just 11 hours away. So I'll see you in the morning, and I'll talk to you next time.